We're now going to start the gearbox. Probably the part of the kit that gives people the most angst. It's complex, but it's not difficult if you follow the instructions and you're organised in what you do. I would strongly recommend that you make sure you take out just the parts you need for each particular section. Have a nice clear area that you can work in and work through each of the stages methodically. Don't try and jump ahead or do anything like that. If you follow the instructions, which I've done many times, it builds up without any problem at all. I'm just having a look so what you can see on here on the camera. You can see most of the parts laid out at the moment for stage 19. Completing the gearbox is in 1, 2, 3, 4 stages, and if you include fitting a motor on the end would be 5 stages, but we'll look at that separately. In essence, stage 19 is where you build the selector shaft, and I've heard people say, in fact I've seen it on Facebook and other places, I can't find the selector shaft, or it's missing from parts bag D. Well, it's not in parts bag D. For some reason, to me, I always supply this separate in its own plastic bag. So don't look for it in parts bag D. You will find it it's usually in the bag with the other parts, such as the bits of double-sided tape and things like that. So that's your selector shaft. That's stage 19, along with building the front plate and 3 of the gearbox stays. You don't build 4 because you wouldn't be able to get the gears in. The 4th one goes in at the end. Stage 20 is building one of the gear shafts. Stage 21 is building the other gear shaft. And then stage 22 is putting together selector fork and both the gear shafts together and putting the rear plate on. So in this section now, we're looking at 19, building what they call a shift rod, or I call a selector shaft from my youth of messing with carb gearboxes. So with no further ado, let's get on. I've already sorted out the parts that I need, and they are in this little tub just here. Strongly advise that you have a look at the diagram before you even start, and make sure you get your shaft the right way around. Okay, first thing to do is we're going to put 2 little very small circlips in the middle. Don't try and pick these up by hand, they're just simply too small, unless you've got very small hands of course. And it's these middle 2 here. You may have your own way of fitting these. To my mind, the easiest way is just line them up underneath and push down nice and straight and firm. Make sure you're putting it in the right ones, which is these 2 in the middle that are very close together. There's one of them done. And the second one's going in the other side. Sometimes if you want a little bit of a hand to keep them in place, stick a bit of grease on there, stops them from going anywhere. I brought the camera in a little bit tighter. Yeah, I'm just having a quick look on my computer screen, just so that hopefully you can see what I'm doing. There's a firm click for them to go into place, and if they've gone into place, they will rotate on the shaft. If they're still stiff on the shaft, they're probably not quite located, so just check them again. So that's the first 2 in place. Now these selector shaft or selectors could go on either way. And I will put my hand up and say, once I built a gearbox and I put one of them on backwards and it wouldn't go together. So I had to give myself a stern talking to. do make sure that you put them on the right way around. You've got these two in the middle here, so just work one way on the shaft and then just work the other way on the shaft. I'm going to start this side, not that it matters. So we look at that there, it clearly shows that it goes on that way, not that way. Okay, like that. On the longer shaft. And there is a need to put grease on there as well. Let's just hold on to that. There we go. Just try and get a bit the other side of that as well. And grease all the way down there. There we go, so that one's in place now. What you need to do now is put on J1. Now parts J are quite interesting. I've already started to chop this up, but you will find that it's something like that. That's it. And they're difficult to know which part's which. Have a look in the back of the manual for J and it clearly tells you which part is which. When you come to do these in section 21, if I think, you've got these three look relatively similar. Just put a marker on them, number 7, number 8, number 6. It all makes life easier for you. Pardon me. I've done the same with the gear wheels. You'll find them in the back as a template. Just mark them on, 44 teeth. 36 teeth, all makes life so much easier for you. Anyway, back to J1. There's a little spacer that goes on there now. Then you have another one of these selector forks which goes the other way around so they face each other, like so. Then we have a spring. Then we have a small washer. Like so, and we have another circlip. This one you won't be able to sort of put on the desk to be able to push down because you've already got all the selector forks in place. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a very small bit of grease on there first. Try not to knock my parts flying everywhere. And I'm going to put that in to there. Not easy to do, just take your time with it. Yeah, you can hold the spring back. If you let go of the spring, they're going to be around the room somewhere. And I'm just going to do that because I was just about to let go of the spring. I've got a couple of fingernails just holding that spring back so that I can get at that. Hopefully you can see that. Get it in line with where you want it first. Okay, I didn't get that in line. Making a bit of a pig there of this one, guys. Let's try some smaller pliers. Come here, you scallywag. Gotcha. Put it where you want it. Little pointed pliers are very useful, as you can see. Now, there's an interesting one. You see that's clipped on but only halfway. Click. So whether you heard that click at the end. Now, so just take your time with it. You'll get there. Yeah. And you can see what that's all about now. It does that, or it could in fact do that. Yeah. Moves the different gears. Check it against your diagram to make sure you've done it right. That's good. Now on the next side here, we're working this way now. I'll put a little bit of that on there. Now we need to have a selector on first. Note the direction, which is that direction there. Okay. Okay, like that. Another spring. And guess what? Another washer and another circlip. There's the washer, which goes on next. And then the little circlip again. Just want the circlip, nothing else. Just going to put a bit of more grease on there. You don't have to put a huge amount of grease on these things, just as long as they move smoothly. That's all you're interested in. Good old metallic screwdrivers. They're great for picking things up, but then they don't want to let go. If you don't have the dexterity to do this, then I can only suggest that perhaps you could ask a friend, somebody else, to knock it up for you. There you go, see, that one went in straight away. So there is your Selector Shaft built. That didn't take too long, did it? Yeah? Make sure you've got it all right. Yeah? Two facing each other, this side of the centre, one facing outwards, the other side of the centre. Good. That's that part done. So we can just leave that over there now. This bit's a lot easier. There are two different plates for the gearbox. The one is obviously a lot bigger than the other. This is the one that has the motor. So this is your front plate, if you like. The gearbox is going to go into these. The two shafts are going to go in here, and your drive cog is going to go through that one for your motor. Pardon me. Note this little piece at the bottom here. That's where the stay goes for the servo to control the selectors. Have a look at your diagram and make sure you get it the right way around, which is that way around. So I've got to put 3 of these on the pins on here, and they need to be held on with thread lock. So what I'm going to do just before I do that, so I'm going to do, there's that Brummie coming through again. I'm going to do J2 in the middle here, which is this little part here. Okay. Obviously you're going to need to make sure you got your plate the right way around, otherwise you'll be putting it on the wrong side. That goes in there. I think it'd be better to do that before I put the rods on, because I can get at it. These use a couple of very small screws and nuts and some thread lock. There's the 2 screws, there's the one, there's the other. Let's just put these in place. 1, 2. 2 in place. We do need to just put a little bit of thread lock on these. That's where a little pointed thing comes in handy. Just a touch, not much. Come on. There's one. There's the other. That's all I wanted. 2 little nuts. One will go in there, like so. Just going to do one at a time. That one's in. Don't over tighten it, because you'll just distort the casing. Remember, you've got thread lock on it, so once the thread lock goes off, it's not going to come undone anyway. So there's it. So put that in there, hold that in place. Just do it up now. Literally just hand tight those. I wouldn't go too tight. You're just going to distort the plastic, and you're going to put a bearing in there. Okay, I think we're done with that up. No, we're not. We need to use it on these 3 as well. So just on the one end of these 3, put some thread lock. Come on. 1, 2, 3, There we go. Plonker. And these are going to go on this side here using these 3 screws. So here we go. Make sure you put them in the right holes. You could put it in the wrong place there. Have a look at your diagram. Start it by hand if you want. There's one. Next screw, which runs parallel across the top. So that's in there. Apologise if some of this goes off the camera. What I've done is I've brought the camera in closer, hopefully so that you can see what we're doing. And it tells you to put one this end over here. Okay, there's one in that end as well. There we go. If you just hold these and just do them up tight, again you've got thread lock on them. They don't need to be massively tight. There we go. We now have the bearing holder in place for the first shaft, or the input shaft if you like. And the only other bit we need to do now is the little threaded shaft at the base, which uses 2 of these, and there's the little threaded shaft. And as you'll see later, this is the guide for the servo to control the gears. Be careful here, it goes through that hole there, not that one, that's where the 4th bar goes, and not that one, because that's where your selector shaft goes. That's the one it goes through there. You start with two nuts on here, one facing one way, just to the end of the thread till it stops. It goes in there like that. Then on the other side we put some thread lock on. There we go. A bit more than I wanted, but it's metal to metal, so it won't matter. Just do that up on there now, all the way, and then we will just tighten that up using one of these. I could use my box sockets, but there's no need for that. So you just do that up tight, and there's a part that moves along there which controls the gear shaft, which goes through there. Just checking now, I think that's stage 19 complete. Nothing left in my parts box. Yep, that's 19 complete. This is stage 20. Just move it forward a bit so you can see it on the camera. Just checking that it's on camera, which is to fit up gear shaft A. All the parts I need are here, which is 1 shaft, 3 special gears and 6 circlips. Not too difficult, this one. Start in the middle of the shaft. I suppose I should say up front that there are 2 shafts. Make sure that you get the correct shaft by checking it against the diagram. Long piece, so the first thing we've got to do is put 2 big clips, one there, one there. Well, that's easy, he says. Let's see if it works out easy, shall we? Watch. Probably ought to do that off my manual, really. End up putting holes through it. Let's try it over here. Oh, I should have done that in the first place. So that's those 2 done. You'll note on here there's no grease used. So let's start with this end. Doesn't matter which end you do first. Uses a 13 tooth gear, which is that one there. Note it's got a collar on it, and the diagram shows the collar facing outwards, not that way, that way. Okay. You then have to put on it, at top of it, a 36 tooth gear. If you remember, I said it was helpful to just mark off the amount of teeth on the gears. 36 tooth. And it shows it going on that way around. And in fact it'll only go on one way around anyway, because it goes on top of that one there. If you try and put it on the other way around, it won't go on. It's got the splines cut in it. So we push that on there, and what we're left with now is just enough space to put a circlip on. Pop the circlip in place where you want it. Hold your breath and ping off somewhere. Oh, we're lucky on this occasion. There we go. So that is the one side done. Note then in the instructions it tells you to turn it round. So now we're doing this side here. Okay, so actually I realised I need to put that 20 tooth gear on first. That was what was confusing me. Where's the 20 tooth gear? Oh, it's over here. Any difference in directions with that? Nope, not that I can see. And that goes on there like that. Then you turn it round. That's what was confusing me. I thought, that doesn't look right. See what I mean? Follow the instructions. Third time lucky? Third time lucky. Has that gone in? Check it's gone all the way in, you don't want it to come off. That's on. Now we've got to put another clip there first. Pop and pick it up. Gotcha. I'm just going to do this one. Oh, it's just on the edge of the camera as I can see. It'd be easier to do it like this for me. There we go. That one's in place now. And what you do here is you put on the 27 tooth cog. And as you can see from the diagram there, it shows that hexagon facing outwards. Okay. Which is going to go on here, but what needs to go in the middle is this piece with the collar facing inwards. So that goes like that. In there like that. And on there like that. So you end up with it like that. So it can't come off. Make sure you put it on in the right order. Last clip. Just going to go on here. And that one's on. Just double check we've got that correct. Yep, 27 tooth. In the middle is that one there, up to there, and on this side behind that one is that. There you go. Gear shaft A is complete. This is stage 21, which is gear shaft B. Just to recap, we built the shift rod, the front of the gearbox and the stays. We've built gear shaft A, we now need to do gear shaft B. And then in the final stage of this video will be stage 22, which is where we put it all together. Right, stage 21. You may recall I did mention at one point about Tamiya doesn't recommend you use metal roller bearings in the gearbox, but I couldn't find where it said it. Here it is. Do not replace with ball bearings. Now what they're referring to is just this particular part here, which is just about on the camera. J7 it's called, and we'll be doing that in a second. I think most people who've built these would agree that this stage here, 21, is probably the most complex stage in the build. I wouldn't use the word difficult because everybody has a different interpretation of that, but certainly in terms of complexity, this is quite a complex piece to do. Once again, I would just say to you, take your time, make sure you sort out all of your parts in advance, work on a nice table where you've got plenty of room to do it, and good lighting as well, so you can see what you're doing. Study the diagram before you actually do anything. You'll note this is in 3 parts. You'll be starting, well 4 actually, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll be starting with building J7 in a minute. Then on the final shaft, just remember there was 2 shafts, so this is the B shaft. We will be doing this bit here, and then you'll notice on the arrow it tells you to turn it round. When you turn it round, we'll be doing these other bits here, and then we'll move forward into the final stage there where we get the whole thing built together. This one now, J7, to my mind is a tricky one to do, and I'll explain why. It needs to have, are you on camera with it? Yeah, just about. It needs to have 2 of the 1260 bearings, that's the 12mm OD bearings, and 60 ID, fitted, 1 in there and 1 in there. But what it tells you to do is to use instant cement. I've done these in the past where I've put instant cement and I put it on, well, if you like, wherever, on the outside of there, and then as I've gone to press it in, it's stuck before I've had a chance to push it firmly all the way in, because I don't know whether you can see it, but there is a recess on both sides, and when these bearings are fitted, they do go down almost flush on both sides. So I'm going to say to you, if you use whatever glue you use, make sure, where's a peg, make sure that you put the glue down in the base there where that ridge is, and not on the outer edge just there, because if you do, as you start to push it in, they tend to stick really quickly before you can put the pressure in. That's my pennyworth. I'm using some super glue here, and it's got a pointer in the middle of it, so I'm just going to swap to, if you bear with me just 1 second, I've got some of these pardon me, close-up glasses. My reasoning for doing that is I want to be quite precise about where I put the glue. I don't want it on the outer edge. I need a massive amount of it. Right, that's gone around the inner edge of there now, but not on the top edge. And when you put this in, get it square and get it in quick. Right, that's all the way in. Now on this side, we need to just get a little bit of glue in there as well. There we go. Use your stick if necessary to just get it round the outside of where you want it. Don't get it on the shaft in the middle. Just let that run round there out the way, because I don't want it to go in the middle. And push that in hard. There we go. 2 in place. Another thing I've seen done as well, why have I seen it done? Because I'll put my hand up and tell you I did it myself, is you put too much glue in there, and what happens is some of it floods onto the inside diameter of that, and then when you come to put it on the shaft, it won't fit. It's because the glue has reduced the size of it. So be very, very careful with that one. Just a small amount of glue precisely just up against that inner ridge, and make sure they go in flat. Don't use too much glue. So there we go. That's that one done. You can, talking of bearings, is it on the camera? Yep, just down here. There's a section down here that talks about bearings where you can replace some of these bearings down here in section 22 with ball bearings, the same as we did with the steering, and we're going to do with the front axle, and I will be doing that. But as far as building this shaft is concerned, we will be sticking with the bearings that the manufacturer to me tell us to use. Quite a lot of parts, took them all out separately. We'll just do one bit at a time, as we've done with the last shaft, and we'll be laughing. Now, make sure you get your shaft the right way around, which is that way around. So we've got a longer part there and a shorter part, then that, and then two. Yep, that's the correct way around. It's so easy to do it wrong. Start off as we do before in the middle with a 4mm E-clip, or as they call it. Just find somewhere to just press this onto here. I will do if I can grab hold of it. Just get it into place where I want it. Just about that. There we go. Have I got my shaft still the right way around? Yes, I have. Now there's parts that are going up against this on both sides, and they need to have grease on them. So let's put a bit of grease on there, shall we? Although I'm only doing the one side at the moment, so we'll just do this side for what it's worth. Now the part that I just built, the J7, goes on to here. You can see it fits quite snugly on that shaft. If you've got any glue residue on it, it'll stick or it won't go on. It must be allowed to freely move. Okay. Once that's in place, we put another circlip on. And the circlip is going here. Oh, that's handy the way it's held that for me. Just like that. This one's going to have to go on with the pliers. I can't use my normal technique. That only went so far, so we make sure that it goes all the way. Click. There we go. There's a nice example of where it hadn't gone all of the way on. You should be able to spin it if it's in the groove, and what you've got now is that. Alright, we now move on to doing the other side. Just put a bit of glue on there, like that. Glue. Just put a bit of grease on there. I do apologise. We've got to put an MD6, which is one of the bigger bearings. That's these here. These are the bigger ones. If you're unsure, you can measure them on there, use a vernier, or if you put them with an 1150, you can actually see physically different in size. We have to find the gear, which is the 37 tooth. There we go, 37. Now this has one of these bearings on each side, but no glue with this one. They're just pushing, okay, quite firmly, until they're in flush. You can see the way around it goes with that open side facing inwards. So that goes in there, and as you can see it locates with those. Now just run that backwards and forwards, just get some stuff underneath it, and the shaft still turns. So that's what we've done there so far. Alright, that's complete. What we need to do now is turn it round and look at the second stage. You can look at your picture there and you can see that that's as I had it. So the first thing I'm going to do is put that circlip on, which it's telling me to do there. So this one goes in here. Nice flat surface to work with this one. Click. Make sure that's locked in position and we'll turn on the shaft, which it does. So that gear's fixed, but that moves. That's where we are now. What we need to do now is put on this collar, MD15, which is one of these, and it's not showing that little ridge on the outside, it's showing it on the inside, but I can tell you it doesn't really matter which way around that goes on. And then we have to put a clip on the back end of it, which is going in there. There we go. Has that gone all the way in? Yes, turns freely and it's locked. So that's that side of it. We've now got to do this side of it, and it's telling us to lubricate with grease this section here. So we do that. MD3 washer. There's only one of these on the whole shaft, and that's it there. That must go on first. Okay, down to there. Following that washer goes another one of these MD15s, and that will go on there. Doesn't need grease on it because it locks in position, but it needs grease on the outside of it, because there's another gear that moves on the outside of that one. Okay, J8. So easy to get confused with these, that's why I marked them up. Number 6, number 8. It goes that way on with the open end facing on there, and that will move when that's fixed anyway. I'm just running the grease on that a bit. Okay. What we then need to do is put an MA21 either side of the 44 tooth gear. This is the 44 tooth, and we need to use two 1150 bearings, which are the smaller ones, just as well. We haven't got the bigger ones left. That one went in there very easily, and that one did. So you've got two of those in there, and then that will go on the shaft that way around. That's how it shows it on the diagram. Yeah, on there, like so. Then you have J5, which is I've marked up as number 5, which is a spacer piece which goes on there, a circlip on the end. Here comes the old circlip, always good fun. And locked in place. You'll notice that locks with that one, or comes out and doesn't lock with that one, and then that locks with that one. It's all clever stuff. Now you can check that against your diagram there to see if it looks right, which it does. This time you don't turn the shaft round when you moved on to the third section. First thing we do is put plenty of grease on these two parts here. Okay. The first thing we need to do will be to put number 6 onto the shaft, and the way it goes on is with the 3 little bits coming outwards, so that goes on there like so. And the final gear we've got here has to have 2 more bearings either side, which are the metal bearings MA21s. That's these here, one in each side. It goes with the collar facing that way, not the other way around, and it goes onto there. You'll notice that spins freely, but if that collar moves forward, it locks it and drives it. Those are your 3 selectors, or what would be synchromesh on a modern vehicle gearbox. And then the last thing we do now is put another clip in here. And there's your shaft built. Stage 22. In this, the last section for this video, we'll be putting all of this gearbox together. To recap, we've built gear shaft B, gear shaft A, selector forks or shift rod as they like to call it, front of the gearbox. So we're putting all of those into there. We'll be putting the rear on the gearbox to lock it all together so that it works, and that's what you can see here. Now, I suppose people do this in different ways. I don't put the grease on before I put them together, because it's just as easy to put the grease on when it's all put together, less messy. I've always done it that way and it works fine. But if you want to put the grease on first, as per this diagram, that's fine. So we start with this unit, and we need to use one of these, a J3, which has to be pushed into the bottom of there, which is quite a firm fit. And then it uses a metal bearing in there. So I'm going to put a metal bearing in there, which has gone into the shaft. And the top one, they suggest you put in a solid metal bearing, one of these. But I'm going to put in another ball race bearing. I put in ball races on both of these shafts because they move an awful lot. And they show grease on there because that would be running against a fixed bearing, whereas in this case it's not, but I'm going to put a drop of grease on it nonetheless. It won't hurt it in both cases. Just an absolute touch. That's all we need. Now, what you've got to try and do now is put together all 3 parts and put them in here. So, let's start by putting together these 2 shafts. Look at your diagram to see how they all go together. Yeah? And that's how they go. Alright? That'll be where your drive cog goes from your motor. And those 2 shafts will quite nicely go in there. But you've got to fit this as well. So just keep those 2 together as best you can. Take them off the diagram so you can see. Make sure we've got this shaft on the way round that it should be, which is showing it like that. Yeah? And those will correspond with those 3 selectors there. You may have to, I've usually put this on first before the A gear shaft, so we can locate them in position. 1, 2, come on, me beauty. Have you come? Got the one on and the other one's jumped out. Okay. You want to play rough? I'll do it slightly differently. Yep. Oh, still haven't got it right. Almost. That one. You're being a swine. I get the one end in and then the other end jumps out. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Yay. That was fun. That's onto there. Now you've got all 3 shafts, you can put them into here. However, before you do, a little spring to go on the end of there. If you forget that spring, you're going to have to take it all apart again. I've done that before. Try and keep it all together as best you can. And I'm trying to do it for the camera as well, which isn't easy. You're going to have to feed that one through there first. Come on, my beauty. Just do it for the camera. Thank you very much. That's 1 in. That's 2 in. A bit of luck. That's 3 in. 1, 2, 3. We're in. Okay. That was fun, wasn't it? Now we take the other side of this, which has got to have the bearing holders and bearings put in it. Make sure we get it the right way around. That hole's got to go same size as that one, because the shaft comes through it with another spring. In fact, we'll put the spring on first, just so I don't forget it. There we go. That's going on that way, so these plastic pieces go in here. Sometimes they do. Sometimes you need to put a lot of pressure on them. Excuse me a minute. Oh. They won't go in. Where's my... Find a pair of pliers to just pull those in. Excuse me a minute. That one didn't want to go in at all. Or this one. Quite a tight fit those are. To get them to go in all the way. There we go. Ah. Clearly didn't have enough Weetabix. Bearings. I'm using roller bearings, or ball bearings actually to be precise, not roller bearings. Just put a touch of grease on there. No, you don't actually need them as such. There we go. Spring, that's all in place. So, if I hold that up now, you can see that goes through. I've made a mistake. Did you spot my mistake? Put that through the wrong hole. There we go. What a plank. It's only when I come to put this end on I realise that I've done it wrong. So the bearings are in from that side, that's good. So because that should go through the a little phosphor bronze bush. Line up the other ends of the gearbox, which should go in like that. Now number 4 goes in here. Number 4 shaft, that is. We'll just do the one end to start with. we've nearly got a complete gearbox. And then up tight. And I forgot to put my thread lock on the ones this end. I've done that one, so I'll do that one and then we'll have to put it through the holes. I'm not doing that up tight, so I've got all the other three done. And all that's left in there are the two bushes that I replaced, so that's a way of making sure that you've used all of your parts correctly. Let's just do these through here. And do it this way. One. And then I can wipe it off afterwards. 2, 3. There we go. I keep trying to do that, don't I? I keep trying to put the grease one back on that. That's 2 in. That's 3 in. And that's 4 in. You'll know if you've got it right, it all just lines up. There we go. And your selector shaft moves both ways. One of the things that you do in the next stage is put a clip on there which will just stop that going too far. So let's just have a look at that now and see what we've got. The normal position for this shaft is 2nd gear, so I've just moved it into there now. That's moving the end spigot now very slowly, so I suggest that's 1st gear. That will be your 2nd gear, and when you move it that way and it locks in, that'll be your 3rd gear, which spins it much faster. So there's your 3 gears working. That is complete apart from putting the grease on. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then job's done. Talk amongst yourselves while I do this. As you can see, it's quite easy to do. When you do this, don't forget to do the selector forks as well, because they do rotate. I'm just doing all the gears first. Don't spin one of these up with a motor without the outer casing on, by the way. I did that once and it flicked grease everywhere. Oh dear. And you can get at the selector forks on the back of here, you see, so that's what I normally do. And run it both ways when you do. Oh, we just put a bit on here first, there we go. Run it both ways. And that's it, believe it or not. That's all you need to do. One gearbox done. Okay.